Hello, my dear watchers, and welcome to my channel. Whether you're joining me under the bright morning sun during a quiet afternoon break, or while curled up in bed as the world outside sleeps, I'm so incredibly glad you're here. Now, take just a second for me. Pause and truly feel this moment. The light in your room, the device in your hand, the very fact that you are here, right now, listening to my voice. It feels like the only moment that's real, doesn't it? The past is a memory, the future a mystery. But what if I told you that this deeply felt experience of time might be one of the most convincing illusions in the entire cosmos? In this journey tonight, we are diving into one of the most breathtaking ideas in all of physics and philosophy: the block universe. It's a theory that suggests every moment that ever was or ever will be, your first day of school, all your future dreams, and this very second, all exist simultaneously, forever frozen in a single, magnificent structure of space-time. It's a concept that challenges everything we think we know about reality, and it's the perfect, mind-expanding topic to relax and drift away to. If this sounds like the kind of deep, calming exploration you enjoy, please do consider supporting our community here at Happy Sleep by hitting that subscribe button and giving this video a like. It truly helps us grow and continue bringing you these peaceful journeys. And because today's topic is all about the nature of time and our place within it, I'd be fascinated to know, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? Let's create a beautiful living map of our shared yet scattered now in the comments below. Now, get comfortable, close your eyes, and let your imagination soar. Let's explore the timeless universe together. Have you ever had that peculiar feeling, perhaps while staring at old photographs, or listening to a story about ancient civilizations, or simply lying awake at night, tracing the path of your life, that something about time isn't quite what it seems? That strange sensation that the past isn't completely gone, but exists somewhere, preserved in some way we can't quite access. What if I told you that according to one compelling interpretation of our most successful physical theories, this feeling might be revealing a profound truth about reality? That your birth, this very moment as you hear these words, and every experience you will ever have throughout your life, all exist simultaneously in a vast, unchanging structure we call the block universe. Today, we're embarking on an extraordinary journey through one of the most mind-bending concepts in all of physics and philosophy: the theory that time as we experience it flowing is ultimately an illusion, and that the past, present, and future are equally real, all existing together in a single, magnificent, four-dimensional block. This idea challenges our most fundamental experiences, yet it emerges naturally from our best understanding of the physical world, particularly from Einstein's theory of relativity. Don't worry if this sounds incomprehensible at first. We'll take this step by step, exploring every facet of this remarkable idea in simple, clear language. By the end of our journey, you may find yourself looking at reality in an entirely new way. So, what exactly is this block universe? Imagine for a moment that everything that ever has happened, or ever will happen, every event from the beginning of the cosmos to its eventual end, is already out there, fixed in place. Much like scenes in a film exist complete on a DVD, waiting to be played. So we have this DVD in our hands. Let's not just pop it into the player and watch it yet. Let's really look at the DVD itself. It's a physical thing, right? It has weight, it's shiny, it has a label, It exists, completely and entirely, in this present moment. On its surface, etched in microscopic pits and lands, is the entire story of a film, the opening logo, the first line of dialogue, the climactic car chase, the final kiss, the closing credits. Every single frame is already there, nothing is missing. The beginning, the middle, and the end all coexist on this single, silent disc. This is our first and perhaps most crucial step in understanding the block universe. The cosmos, in this view, is that DVD. It is a complete four-dimensional object where every scene from the Big Bang to the final fate of the universe is already encoded, already present, and already real. Now, our lives, our conscious experience, is what happens when we play the DVD. We are like the laser in the DVD player, illuminating one tiny, fleeting spot on the disc at a time. This spot is what we call now, the present moment. It feels incredibly vivid, immediate, and real. And then, in the blink of an eye, the laser moves on. The moment we just experienced, that specific frame, is gone from our immediate awareness, and a new one takes its place. We remember the frames that have already been illuminated. We call that the past. We anticipate the frames that are about to be illuminated. We call that the future. This sequential, frame-by-frame experience is what we perceive as the flow of time. It feels like a river, carrying us inexorably from the past, through the present, and into the future. But here's the mind-bending part, the core of the block universe idea. The river isn't actually flowing. The river is frozen. The journey is already complete. We are just taking the walk, step by step, along a path that is already entirely built, with every twist, turn, and destination already in place. The feeling of movement, of change, of things happening, is an illusion generated by our particular point of view, by the fact that our consciousness can only focus on one incredibly narrow slice of this vast, static structure at any given moment. Let's make this even more personal. Think about your own life. You have memories of your 5th birthday party, perhaps. The taste of the cake, the sound of friends singing, the feeling of a new toy in your hands. In our normal way of thinking, that event is gone. It's a ghost in your mind, a mere echo of something that has ceased to exist. But in the block universe, that birthday party is not gone. It is still happening, right now, in a different part of the cosmic DVD. The child that is you is still blowing out those candles, in the same way that the scene on the DVD where the hero first appears is still there on the disc, even when the player's laser is on the final scene. The event is fixed in the grand structure of space-time, a permanent part of the universe's history. Similarly, events that you would consider to be in your future, your next birthday, a vacation you have planned for next year, the moment you'll finish listening to this podcast, they aren't uncertain possibilities waiting to spring into existence. According to this theory, they are just as real and solid as your past. They are already on the disc, waiting for your conscious awareness, the laser of your perception, to scroll across them and bring them into your subjective experience of now. This is what philosophers mean by eternalism. It's the belief that all points in time, yesterday, today, tomorrow, 1,000 years ago, 1,000,000 years in the future, are equally real. They all exist, eternally and unchangingly, in the vast four-dimensional block that is our reality. Now, you might be objecting. This feels completely wrong. I can feel time passing. I can make choices that change the future. If the future is already set, then what's the point of anything? This is a perfectly natural and powerful reaction. Our entire existence is built around the sensation of time's flow. Our language, our emotions, our very sense of self are steeped in it. The idea that it might be a kind of grand illusion is deeply unsettling. But let's sit with that discomfort for a moment and see if we can find a new way to look at it. Think about a long, winding road cutting through a beautiful mountain range. The road exists all at once, from its starting point in the valley to its highest peak to its final destination in a distant town. Every curve, every bridge, every pothole is already there. Now, imagine you're driving on that road. From your perspective inside the car, the road is unfolding. You approach a bend and you can't see what's beyond it. You crest a hill and a new vista reveals itself. The journey feels dynamic and sequential. You are experiencing the road temporally, bit by bit, moment by moment. But a bird flying high above the road sees the truth. The entire road exists simultaneously. The beginning, the middle, and the end are all just there. The bird has a spatial view of the entire structure. The block universe theory suggests that the bird's eye view is the true, objective reality. The universe is that complete road. We, however, are forever stuck in the car, experiencing the illusion of a journey that is, from a higher perspective, already over. This leads us to the block itself. We are familiar with 3 dimensions of space: length, width, and height. Everything in the universe has a location within these 3 dimensions. The block universe theory simply adds time as a 4th dimension, not as something separate and flowing, but as another coordinate, just like a spatial coordinate. So, to specify an event completely, you don't just say where it happened, in New York at latitude X, longitude Y, altitude Z. You also say when it happened on July 4th, 2024 at 3:42 p.m. That event, that point in the 4-dimensional block, is fixed forever. It is a permanent part of the cosmic landscape. Your life, therefore, is not a fleeting story being written on disappearing parchment. It is more like a long, intricate sculpture, a world line, weaving its way through the 4-dimensional block. One end of the sculpture is the event of your birth. The other end is the event of your death. And every single moment in between, every thought, every breath, every joy, every sorrow, is a permanent part of that sculpture. The you listening to this now is just one particular cross-section of that sculpture, momentarily aware of itself. This is a good time to address that big question about free will. If everything is already set in the block, do we have any real choices? It's a profound puzzle. One way to think about it is that your choices are not irrelevant. They are what define the shape of your world line. The you that chose to listen to this script is an integral part of the overall structure. The block isn't forcing you to do things against your will. It contains your will, your decisions, your personality, your desires. All of these are the factors that determine the unique path your world line takes through space-time. So, in a strange way, you are both the author of your life and a character in a story that is already completely written. Your agency is real. It's just that its entire timeline of expression exists all at once. Let's go back to our DVD analogy to clear up a common misunderstanding. When we say the future is already there, we don't mean that it's predestined by some external fate or that your life is on autopilot. Think of a DVD of a video game, like a sprawling, open-world role-playing game. The entire game world, every forest, every city, every character, every possible quest, is already on the disc. It's a complete, static set of data. but the actual story that unfolds depends entirely on the choices the player makes. The player has genuine agency. They can choose to be a hero or a villain, to explore the northern mountains or the southern deserts. The disc contains all the possibilities that are consistent with the game's rules. In a similar way, the block universe might contain the entire single timeline that results from all the choices made by every particle and every conscious being. Or, if certain interpretations of quantum mechanics are correct, it might be a vast, branching structure containing every possible outcome of every quantum event. A multiverse block. In either case, your specific path, your specific story, is real and permanent within that structure. The feeling that the past is fixed and the future is open, then, is a feature of our consciousness, not a feature of reality itself. We remember the past because our brains store information from the frames that have already been illuminated by our conscious laser. We cannot remember the future because we haven't seen those frames yet. The information simply isn't accessible to our present self. But from the perspective of the block, both sets of frames are equally real and present. This idea can be both comforting and strange. It means that the people you have loved and lost are not completely gone. The moments of perfect happiness you've experienced are not lost to the void. They are eternally real, forever preserved in their specific coordinates in space-time. They are playing out, right now, in their own slice of the block, just as you are in yours. Your entire life, with all its triumphs and failures, is a timeless work of art. Nothing can erase it, because it is a fundamental part of the universe. You are, in a very real sense, eternal. According to the block universe view, time or temporal relations of earlier than and later than exist. These relations hold regardless of where anyone is located. So suppose Bert the dinosaur is located earlier than Sally the dog. That relation between Bert and Sally holds, regardless of whether we are located earlier than Bert or later than Sally. Bearing this in mind, it is possible to see how to make sense of the idea of past and future. Just as on this model now picks out whatever time I happen to be located at, past picks out any time or events at those times that are earlier than my location, and future picks out any times or events that are later than my location. This way of thinking about time has dramatic implications, one of the most exciting being the possibility of time travel. If time is just another dimension, a lot like the spatial dimensions, does that mean we can travel in time? The short, breathtaking answer is yes. In the framework of the block universe, time travel isn't just a fantasy. It's a conceptual possibility. It's written into the very fabric of this four-dimensional reality. But, and this is a very big but, it's nothing like what you see in the movies. It's way more complicated, way more strange. And it follows a set of rules that are as rigid as the block itself. Let's break this down, because there are two very different kinds of time travel we need to talk about. First, there's traveling to the future. And the wonderful, confirmed by physics truth is that we are all time travelers to the future. Right now. You're doing it. You've traveled approximately 10 seconds into the future since you started listening to this sentence. But we're talking about a more dramatic kind of journey, leaping decades, centuries, or millennia ahead in a relatively short amount of personal time. And for that, we have a ready-made mechanism, a cosmic cheat code confirmed by Einstein's theory of relativity, time dilation. Think of it this way. Imagine the speed of light as the universe's ultimate speed limit. Nothing can go faster. Now, as any object approaches this speed, something very weird starts to happen to its time. From the perspective of someone watching from a stationary point, like Earth, time for the fast-moving object appears to slow down. It's like that object is living its life in slow motion. Let's paint a picture. Imagine twin sisters, Alice and Beth. Alice is a fearless astronaut, and she climbs aboard a revolutionary spacecraft, one that can cruise at a significant fraction of the speed of light, say 99.5%. She embarks on a round trip to a star system 50 light years away. From Beth's perspective on Earth, the journey takes a little over 100 years. Beth lives her life, she grows old, and by the time Alice's ship returns, 100 Earth years have passed. Beth is 100 years older. But what about Alice? On her ship, because she was moving so incredibly fast, time was dilated. It slowed down for her. For her, the entire journey might have only taken, say, 10 years. She eats, sleeps, reads, and exercises for a decade. She ages 10 years. When she lands back on Earth, she steps out of her ship, still a young woman, into a world that is a century into her future. She has effectively time-traveled 90 years forward. She hasn't just seen the future, she has lived her way into it. This isn't speculation, it's a proven effect. We have to account for it with our GPS satellites, which orbit the Earth at high speeds. If we didn't constantly correct for the tiny time dilation they experience, your phone's map would be wrong by several miles within minutes. So, traveling to the future is, in a very real sense, established science. It's a matter of engineering and energy, figuring out how to build a ship that can go that fast and survive the trip. But it's possible within the laws of physics. Now, what about the real holy grail of time travel? Going backwards, visiting the past. This is where things get truly bizarre, and where the block universe model shows its true colors. The most theoretically plausible method for traveling to the past involves one of the most exotic concepts in all of physics, the wormhole. You've probably heard of them. A wormhole is often imagined as a tunnel, a shortcut through the normal curved fabric of space-time. Einstein's equations of general relativity allow for such structures. Think of the universe as a vast, giant piece of paper. If you want to get from point A at the bottom to point B at the top, you have to travel the long way across the entire page. But what if you could fold the paper so that point A and point B touch? A wormhole would be like poking a pencil through the fold, creating an instant bridge between the two distant points. You've just shortcut through a higher dimension. Now here's the time travel part. According to some theories, if you could take one mouth of this wormhole and put it on a super fast journey, like attaching it to our astronaut Alice's ship, something incredible would happen. Due to time dilation, time would pass more slowly for that moving mouth. Let's say Alice takes it on a 5-year journey at near light speed. For the mouth left on Earth, 10 years pass. When Alice returns and parks the moving mouth next to the stationary one, they are no longer just connected through space. They are connected through time. The stationary mouth on Earth might be reading the year 2050, but the mouth that went on the journey, having experienced less time, might only be at the year 2045. If you were to now step into the stationary mouth in 2050, you wouldn't just emerge in a different location. You would emerge from the moving mouth in the year 2045. You'd have traveled 5 years into the past. You've created a time machine. But, and this is the most crucial but you will ever hear, the block universe has a built-in cosmic safety mechanism. It's often called the consistency conjecture, or the principle of self-consistency. Remember, the universe is a single, consistent, four-dimensional block. There are no contradictions. The timeline is what it is. This means that if time travel to the past is possible, then anything a time traveler does in the past must already be a part of the past. This completely obliterates the classic time travel paradoxes we love to worry about. The grandfather paradox, you know the one. You go back in time and accidentally prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, thus preventing your own birth, thus making it impossible for you to go back in time in the first place? In the block universe, this is impossible. Why? Because the past already includes your visit. You were always there. Let's play this out. You build your wormhole time machine and decide to go back to 1920 to see a flapper dance. The moment you arrive in 1920, you are part of 1920. You have always been part of 1920. You are now a character in the historical events of that year. So what do? You act like a normal person. You breathe the air. You step on a blade of grass. You maybe buy a newspaper. You are part of the causal chain of events that leads to the present. Now let's say you intend to create a paradox. You decide you are going to find your grandfather and stop him. You track him down. But here's the thing. The fact that you exist in the present is proof that you failed. The timeline is consistent. Perhaps you slip on a banana peel on the way. Perhaps you get lost. Perhaps you have a change of heart. Perhaps you even accidentally do something that ensures he meets your grandmother. The point is, your actions in the past are not changing history. They are fulfilling it. You are not an external editor hacking the cosmic DVD. You were always an actor in the scene. Your attempts to alter events are simply the actions that make the past exactly what it always was. This means that for all we know, our history is absolutely teeming with time travelers from the future. They couldn't change the broad sweep of history because their presence is already factored in. Maybe a time traveler accidentally gave Julius Caesar the idea for a battle formation. Maybe one lost a futuristic coin that inspired Leonardo da Vinci. Their actions are seamlessly woven into the tapestry of the past. We wouldn't be able to spot a divergence because there is no divergence. The timeline is a single, self-consistent story. This has a funny implication. If time travel to the past is ever invented in the future, then it has always been invented. It exists at all points in time after its creation. So, the fact that we haven't been overrun by time tourists from the future might suggest that it is never invented, or that it's so difficult or costly that it's rarely used, or that time travelers are impeccably discreet. Or perhaps they're here, and we just don't know it, their actions blending perfectly into the background noise of history. So, the block universe doesn't just allow for time travel, it tames it. It turns it from a universe-breaking concept into a potentially natural, if incredibly advanced, form of transportation within a static, four-dimensional reality. The future is a place you can travel to by going very, very fast. The past is a place you might visit through cosmic shortcuts, but you can only ever be a participant, never a director. You can walk the paths of history, but you cannot redraw the map. The journey, it turns out, was always complete. And in this vast, silent, eternal block, every departure and every arrival is already and always right where it belongs. But here comes the inevitable question. If I can travel in time, can I change the past? The block universe, in its calm, immutable logic, gives us a clear, uncompromising, and ultimately beautiful answer. No. Not, it would be difficult. Not, you shouldn't. But a fundamental, physical, and logical no. The reason is as elegant as it is simple. a contradiction cannot exist. The universe does not and cannot allow it. Think of a simple mathematical truth. 2 plus 2, 4. Can you travel to a time when 2 plus 2, 5? No. It's a logical impossibility. In the same way, the idea of changing the past is a logical impossibility within a unified four-dimensional reality. Why? Because of that core principle we must keep returning to. The past is not some fragile, ethereal thing that faded away. In the block universe, the past is just as solid, real, and present as the city you live in. You can't change the city of London. It is what it is. You can visit it. You can walk its streets. You can even, through your actions, become a part of its ongoing story. You might buy a coffee from a shop, leaving them with one less latte, and that tiny action ripples outward. But you are not changing London from some pure pre-you state into a new post-you state. You are simply participating in London. London has always included the fact that you would one day buy that coffee. Your arrival didn't alter a finished story. You were always a character in it. This is exactly how we must think of the past. When you travel to 1920, you are not arriving in a pristine, untouched 1920 that is waiting for your input. You are arriving in the 1920, the one and only 1920 that has always existed, the one that has, from its very first second, contained your arrival as an integral part of its history. You were always there. Your time machine didn't create a new branch or a new timeline. It simply delivered you to a location where you always were, just as a train delivers you to a city you were always destined to visit. This is the mind bender. From the perspective of the people in 1920, you are not a time traveler from the future. You are just a strangely dressed, perhaps confusing person who showed up one day. You are part of their present. What is past for you is their future. And just as your own future feels open and unknown to you, your sudden appearance in their town is a new, unexpected event in their unfolding present. But from the God's eye view of the block, your entire life, from your birth to your time travel adventure and beyond, is a single, unbroken world line weaving through the decades. So, what do you do in the past? You live. You act exactly as you do in your own time. You breathe the air, and in doing so, you inhale molecules that have been waiting for your lungs since the dawn of time. You tread on an ant, and the universe, in its vast, four-dimensional ledger, had that ant's death under your foot recorded since the beginning. You chat with a flapper at a jazz club, and your conversation, which feels spontaneous to you both, is a fixed, eternal piece of dialogue in the great play of history. You are not a ghost. You are a participant. Your actions have effects, but they are the effects that always were. This is where the beautiful analogy from our text comes in. Just as when I eat cornflakes instead of toast tomorrow, I am not changing the future. I'm just making the future the way it is. When I travel to the past, I don't change it. I just make it the way it is, and always has been. Let's unpack this golden nugget. Think about your breakfast tomorrow. You might be lying in bed right now, pondering the great culinary dilemma. Cornflakes or toast? It feels like an open choice. The future feels unwritten. But in the block universe, tomorrow morning already exists. The you of tomorrow morning is already eating one of them. When you finally make that choice, when your hand reaches for the cornflakes box, you are not changing the future from a toast-eating future to a cornflakes-eating future. You are simply enacting the future that always was. You are discovering your own destiny moment by moment. Your choice is real, your agency is real, but its outcome is a single fixed point in the block. Now transfer that exact same logic to time travel. When you step out of your machine in the past and pat a donkey, you are not altering a donkey pat-free past. You are simply enacting the past that always contained a donkey being patted by you. Your presence and your actions are the very things that make the past what it always was. This leads to the inevitable and strangely comforting conclusion about paradoxes. The grandfather paradox is the classic example. The block universe resolves it with elegant finality. The very fact that you exist to build a time machine and attempt this journey is absolute, ironclad proof that you will fail. You cannot prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, because if you did, the entire chain of events leading to you would unravel, creating the contradiction of you existing to do something that makes your existence impossible. The universe does not allow contradictions. So, how does the universe stop you? It doesn't need some cosmic police force. It's built into the geometry of reality. Your attempt is part of the timeline. Perhaps you get sick that day and can't leave your time machine. Perhaps you have a last-minute change of heart. Perhaps you misinterpret the records and accidentally stop the wrong man. Or, in a wonderfully ironic twist, perhaps your bungled attempt to stop their meeting is the very thing that causes them to meet. Maybe your suspicious behavior draws their attention to each other, or in trying to stop them, you accidentally lock them in a broom closet together. The point is, your actions, however well-intentioned or disastrous, will seamlessly integrate into the causal chain that leads to the present moment, a present that includes you. This means that our history is potentially far weirder and more wonderful than we ever imagined. The text makes a stunning point. For all we know, the reason the past is the way it is in part due to the presence of time travelers. Let that sink in. The mysteries of history, the lost inventions, the strange artifacts that don't seem to fit, the inexplicable genius of certain figures, could some of them be the work of visitors from the future? Perhaps the stunning precision of ancient megalithic structures had some help. Perhaps a Renaissance painter was inspired by a strange, futuristic artifact left behind by a careless tourist. Maybe a critical battle was won because a time traveler, trying to be inconspicuous, accidentally gave a general a brilliant idea. And because their actions are part of the consistent, unchangeable block, we would never know. There would be no obvious divergence point in the historical record. The time traveler's actions are simply part of the cause and effect that led to our world. They are the hidden threads in the tapestry, always there, just invisible to a casual glance. So, the block universe doesn't rob time travel of its wonder. It transforms it. It changes the fantasy from being the master of history, the great rewriter of wrongs, to being the ultimate historian, the silent participant, the hidden witness. You cannot change a single line of the cosmic story, but you can perhaps ensure that you were always a part of it. In this vast, silent, and complete universe, every moment is protected, every life is sacred, and every story is forever. One of the biggest questions raised by the block universe theory is whether or not we truly have free will. If every event is fixed, it implies a predetermined fate, removing personal accountability. Yet at the same time, some find comfort in the idea. If the universe is infinite, perhaps every possible outcome exists somewhere within this cosmic block. Thus, even if we experience only one version of events, countless other versions of ourselves live entirely different lives. This paradox becomes a core struggle for many when encountering this idea. The block universe theory forces us to confront profound questions about the nature of our existence. If the future already exists, in what sense do we make choices? Are our decisions real, or are we merely following a script written in the fabric of space-time? Different thinkers have approached this problem in different ways. Some philosophers and physicists argue that the block universe is fully deterministic, that every event is completely determined by prior causes. Others suggest that quantum mechanics introduces genuine randomness and multiple possibilities, all of which exist in the broader multiverse. Still others propose that our experience of choice is real and meaningful, even within a fixed timeline, that we are like authors discovering the story of our lives as we live them. This connects to what many find both comforting and unsettling about the block universe. As one writer notes, often it's described by saying that all of the past events in the universe, including all the people who've ever lived, are still out there right now. In other words, Julius Caesar, the Buddha, Gandhi, and our deceased relatives are still living their lives right now. Likewise, we're often told that our lives are now part of the block, and that nothing will ever remove that part of the overall pattern. The overall sense, I think, is meant to be comforting. But the writer goes on to question this comfort. But what exactly do we mean by right now in this context? Certainly not the same now we mean when we talk about our current plane of simultaneity within the block. A notion that general relativity has rendered into something relative to our current frame. So the right now that historical figures and past relatives are still living their lives would have to be a now outside of our normal conception of time. And why exactly should we take comfort that our lives are ostensibly an undeletable part of the block? Who will ever see that part of the pattern, and in what context? Being outside of time and space, God, higher dimensional aliens. I can see a religious person finding comfort in the first answer, but the second one doesn't necessarily provide me any comfort. This touches on something deep about our relationship with time and existence. The idea that our loved ones still exist somewhere in the block might provide solace similar to certain religious or spiritual beliefs about eternity. Yet the precise physical nature of this existence, as static patterns in space-time rather than living conscious beings, may feel cold and impersonal to some. This tension between the scientific and emotional dimensions of the block universe is something we'll continue to explore. Now, you might be wondering where this strange idea came from. While the block universe has gained prominence through modern physics, similar concepts have appeared throughout history in various philosophical and religious traditions. The pre-Socratic Greek philosopher Parmenides of Elea posited that existence is timeless and change is impossible, an idea popularized by his disciple Zeno of Elea and his famous paradoxes about motion. In the Middle Ages, philosopher Catherine A. Rogers argued that Anselm of Canterbury took an eternalist view of time, although this interpretation has been debated by other scholars. Augustine of Hippo wrote that God is outside of time, that time exists only within the created universe. Thomas Aquinas took the same view, and many theologians agree. On this view, God would perceive something like a block universe, while time might appear differently to the finite beings contained within it. So the idea that time might not be what it seems has deep roots. But the modern scientific version of the block universe theory emerges primarily from Einstein's theory of relativity. In fact, many philosophers have argued that relativity implies eternalism. Philosopher of science Dean Rickles says that The consensus among philosophers seems to be that special and general relativity are incompatible with presentism. Christian Withrick argues that supporters of presentism can salvage absolute simultaneity only if they reject either empiricism or relativity. To understand why relativity leads us to the block universe, we need to grasp one of its most revolutionary insights: the relativity of simultaneity. In our everyday experience, we assume that when two events happen at the same time, this is an absolute fact that everyone would agree on. But Einstein discovered that this isn't true. To understand why relativity leads us to the block universe, we need to grasp one of its most revolutionary insights: the relativity of simultaneity. In our everyday experience, we assume that when two events happen at the same time, this is an absolute fact that everyone would agree on. But Einstein discovered that this isn't true. Observers moving relative to each other will disagree about whether distant events are simultaneous. In special relativity, one can construct the surface of simultaneity of an inertial observer in a straightforward way. One puts two lights in equal distances into the rest frame of the observer, meaning their relative velocities vanishes. If the observer measures signals from both lights to arrive at his world line at the same time, he says they were emitted simultaneously. Doing this for lights of all possible distances creates a surface called the surface of simultaneity, on which all events lie that happen at the same time according to that observer. If one considers a second observer moving with a relative velocity to the first, she can do the same construction. It turns out, however, her notion of simultaneity is a different one, and her slices of equal time are not identical to those of the first observer. The reason for this is that the speed of light is constant in SR and the same for all observers. This is where the block universe picture naturally emerges. The argument goes as follows: if everything exists that one observer calls simultaneous, but there is nothing special about that observer, then everything that another observer calls simultaneous exists the same way. You can repeat this for all observers that cross either of these already existing surfaces anywhere, and you'll fill up the whole space. Thus, everything in the four-dimensional plane exists because everything lies on somebody's surface of simultaneity. This elegant but perplexing reasoning suggests that if we take relativity seriously, we're led to the conclusion that the past, present, and future are all equally real. The universe is not a three-dimensional world that changes over time, but a four-dimensional world that simply is. As one physicist explains, I thus believe in the block universe in which there is nothing special about the now, and the past and the future exists in the same way as the present moment. Nevertheless, I want to point out this isn't more than a belief of mine that I personally find plausible. Especially, I do not think it follows from special relativity, as some comments indicated. This is an important qualification. While many physicists and philosophers believe relativity implies the block universe, this interpretation isn't strictly forced upon us by the equations. The block universe is, as one writer puts it, just one interpretation of relativity. Why is this distinction important? Because relativity is often presented as if its metaphysical meaning were already decided. Space-time is a block, past and future equally real, time's flow an illusion. The block universe has become so familiar that it is mistaken for the theory itself rather than what it really is, an interpretation. This writer argues that the block universe is not the only metaphysical option. Relativity can be read another way, as evidence of an ongoing leak of information from the coherent domain we inhabit into an untraceable reservoir. On this reading, time and becoming are not illusions, but the lived phenomenology of continuous reconfiguration. Relativity, like quantum mechanics, admits interpretations, and the choice matters. This alternative perspective reminds us that science, especially at its frontier, often involves interpreting mathematical formalisms in ways that go beyond what can be directly proven. The block universe is a compelling interpretation, but it's not the only possible one. Other conceptions of time exist, such as presentism, the view that only the present is real, and the growing block universe theory, the view that the past and present are real, but the future is not. Now, the growing block universe theory presents a wonderfully dynamic and almost organic picture of reality. It suggests that the entirety of the past and the present are real, solid, and fixed, much like the layers of rock and sediment that make up the Grand Canyon. Each era, each epoch is preserved in place. The big difference, the beautiful and thrilling difference, is that this cosmic canyon is still being dug. The now, this very moment you and I are sharing, is the active, growing edge of creation. It's the cutting face of the drill, the point where new reality is being crystallized out of the formless, non-existent future and added brick by brick to the permanent structure of the past. This idea feels so natural to many of us because it honors our deepest intuitions, that the past is unchangeable and truly happened, that we exist in a genuine present, and that the future is not yet written, remaining a realm of pure potential. It resolves the curious paradox that our universe had a definite beginning, a Big Bang, but doesn't seem to have a visible, finished end just yet. The block is growing from a beginning, but toward an end that hasn't been created. One of the most compelling arguments for this view, as you mentioned, comes from philosopher Michael Tooley, who roots his reasoning in the nature of cause and effect. Let's try to feel this argument rather than just hear it. Think about a simple cause and its effect. Imagine a cue ball striking an 8-ball, sending it rolling into the corner pocket. The cue ball's motion is the cause. The 8-ball dropping is the effect. Now, this relationship is profoundly asymmetrical. The effect depends entirely on its cause. The 8-ball would never have moved if the cue ball hadn't struck it. But the cause is independent. The cue ball was moving just fine before it ever made contact. For Tooley, this fundamental dependency only makes sense if the effect wasn't real at the time the cause happened. If the effect was already just as real as the cause, if the 8-ball falling was already a fixed part of reality at the same moment the cue ball was set in motion, then in what meaningful sense does it depend on the cause? The chain of causality, the very thing that structures our universe and our understanding of it, seems to require that causes bring their effects into being. And since causes always come before their effects, this creates a powerful picture of a universe that is constantly growing, where new events are constantly being actualized at the leading edge of the present, becoming the solid causal past for the next moment to come. However, as with any grand theory of reality, the growing block universe faces its own set of profound and quirky challenges. The most famous one is this delightful head-scratcher. If the block is growing, and the now is a special, objective property that moves forward, how can we ever be sure that we are actually in the present? This is the problem of knowing whether now is now. Let's bring this to life. Picture Socrates, the great philosopher, in ancient Athens, deep in a passionate debate with his friend Gorgias. The sun is warm on the marble, the air is thick with ideas, and Socrates, in that moment, feels the vivid, undeniable reality of his own now. He thinks with absolute certainty, "This discussion is happening now. I am alive on the very edge of existence." And according to the growing block universe, he was right. At that moment in the past, he was in the objective present. But here's the twist. From our perspective here in what we call the present, Socrates and his now are long gone. They are part of the vast frozen past of the block. So, if we follow this logic, Socrates was objectively correct about his location in time, but his now is not our now. The property of being present has moved on. This leads to a vertiginous question. How can we, today, be sure that our own powerful feeling of being in the now is correct? What if, from the perspective of some far future being, our vibrant, buzzing present is already a static, lifeless part of the past, just like Socrates' conversation? The theory suggests there is one single, objective present, but it seems we can never have certainty about our place in it. Every now feels identically real to the person experiencing it, so we can never step outside of time to check if we're truly on the cutting edge. Some philosophers, like Peter Forrest, have tried to address this by suggesting that while the past exists, it is somehow lifeless and inactive, with consciousness only possible right at the very bleeding edge of the block. This is a fascinating idea, that sentience itself is the glow of the growing tip, but it raises its own questions about what consciousness is and why it would be bound to this specific, moving slice of reality. Returning to the standard block universe model, one of its strengths is its elegant handling of time travel paradoxes. If the universe is a single, consistent block where all events are equally real, then any time travel that occurs must be consistent with the entire timeline. You cannot change the past, because the past already includes whatever time travel activities occurred. This eliminates the famous grandfather paradox, where someone travels back in time to prevent their grandfather from meeting their grandmother, thus preventing their own birth. In the block universe, if you travel to the past, you were always part of that past. Your actions there were always part of the timeline. So, if you attempt to kill your grandfather, something will always prevent you from succeeding. Or perhaps you will discover that you were adopted, or that your grandfather wasn't who you thought he was. The point is, the timeline is consistent and cannot be changed. This has interesting implications for how we think about history. For all we know, many historical events might have been influenced by time travelers from the future. The reason things happened the way they did might be precisely because time travelers were present and active. Yet their presence doesn't change anything. It simply makes history what it always was. This perspective transforms time travel from an activity that changes history to one that discovers or participates in history. Now, you might be wondering about the relationship between the block universe and quantum mechanics. Quantum theory, with its probabilistic nature and apparent indeterminism, might seem to conflict with the deterministic picture often associated with the block universe. If quantum events are truly random and not determined until they're observed, how can the future be fixed? This is an active area of debate among physicists and philosophers. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, like the many worlds interpretation, are actually quite compatible with the block universe idea. In the many worlds interpretation, all possible outcomes of quantum events actually occur, but in different branches of reality. This creates a vast branching block universe where every possibility is realized in some branch. Other interpretations, like the Copenhagen interpretation, with its collapse of the wave function, might seem less compatible, though some thinkers have found ways to reconcile them. Recently, some physicists have argued that a block time model solves certain quantum puzzles, such as the black hole information paradox. Hrvoje Nikolić has argued precisely this position. The black hole information paradox arises from the conflict between quantum mechanics, which says information cannot be destroyed, and general relativity, which suggests information is lost when things fall into black holes. If space-time is viewed as a block, this paradox might be resolvable. The intersection of quantum mechanics and the block universe remains one of the most exciting frontiers in theoretical physics. As we develop a theory of quantum gravity, a theory that successfully combines general relativity with quantum mechanics, our understanding of time may undergo yet another revolution. Some approaches to quantum gravity, like Julian Barber's theory, propose that time is entirely illusory, even at the fundamental level. Others suggest that time emerges from more basic building blocks. Lee Smolin, a theoretical physicist, argues against the block universe view in his book Time Reborn, proposing instead that time is physically fundamental. Smolin hypothesizes that the laws of physics are not fixed, but rather evolve over time via a form of cosmological natural selection. In The Singular Universe and the Reality of Time, co-authored with philosopher Roberto Mangabeira Unger, Smolin goes into more detail on his views on the physical passage of time. In contrast to the orthodox block universe view, Smolin argues that what instead exists is a thick present, in which two events in the present can be causally related to each other. The debate continues, with passionate voices on all sides. At the Time in Cosmology conference held at the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics in 2016, physicist Avshalom Elitzer vehemently rejected the block universe interpretation, declaring, "I'm sick and tired of this block universe. I don't think that next Thursday has the same footing as this Thursday. The future does not exist. It does not. Ontologically, it's not there." Elitzer and his colleague, Shahar Dolev, argue that quantum mechanical experiments challenge the mainstream block universe model and support the existence of an objective passage of time. This ongoing scientific debate reminds us that our understanding of time is still evolving. The block universe may not be the final word on the nature of time, but it represents a compelling perspective that has emerged from our best physical theories to date. Now, let's delve deeper into what the block universe might mean for our understanding of personal identity. If all moments in your life exist simultaneously, in what sense are you a single continuous entity? Are you the entire four-dimensional worm that stretches from your birth to your death? Or are you just the momentary slice that is experiencing now? This puzzle has fascinated philosophers for centuries. In the block universe, what we think of as I or self might be better understood as a series of connected moments, each with their own perspective, strung together along a world line in space-time. Each moment has access to memories of previous moments through the brain's storage of information, and anticipations of future moments, creating the illusion of a continuous self. But fundamentally, there is no more a flow of the self from one moment to another than there is a flow of time itself. This perspective has intriguing similarities to certain Buddhist philosophies that question the substantial reality of the self. The Buddhist concept of anatta, or not-self, suggests that what we call the self is actually a collection of changing elements, not a permanent entity. Similarly, in the block universe, your life is a pattern in space-time, with no special moment that is more you than any other. This doesn't mean that your experiences are invalid or that your life lacks meaning. On the contrary, each moment of experience is real and valuable in its own right. The joy you felt at a childhood birthday party is just as real as the pain you felt at a disappointment, which is just as real as the experience you're having right now. They all exist eternally in the block. This brings us to a profound point about the block universe and the meaning of life. If everything is predetermined in the block, does life lack purpose? Are our struggles and achievements meaningless? This is a deeply personal question that different people answer differently. Some find the block universe perspective depressing, as it seems to remove genuine novelty and free will from the world. Others find it comforting. Their lives, with all their joys and sorrows, are eternally part of the cosmic structure. Nothing can erase their experiences or their existence. The novelist behind The Silent Guardian explores this tension through their character, Adam Foster, who grapples deeply with this concept, questioning whether his actions are truly his own or merely predetermined events laid out at the universe's inception. The novel uses the block universe as a narrative device to explore profound questions about destiny and choice. The block universe adds a layer of profundity to our existence. Every moment of love, every act of kindness, every creative insight, every moment of learning and growth, these are not fleeting experiences that disappear into nothingness. They are eternal features of the cosmos, as real as the stars and galaxies. Your life is not a brief candle flame that flickers and dies, but a permanent carving in the fabric of reality. This perspective can transform how we view our lives and our place in the cosmos. The mistakes you made in the past aren't gone. They're still out there, as real as anything. But so are your triumphs, your moments of connection, your acts of courage. The future is already out there too, with all its possibilities and certainties. This might seem to eliminate free will, but perhaps it simply reframes it. Your choices are real. They're part of what makes the block what it is. Without your choices, the block would be different. Think of it this way. An author writing a novel contains the entire story in their mind, or on paper, from beginning to end. Yet the characters in the novel may still experience their decisions as free, their struggles as real, their growth as meaningful. The fact that the story is complete doesn't make the characters' experiences less valuable. Similarly, in the block universe, the fact that our lives are complete in the four-dimensional block doesn't make our experiences less real or meaningful to us. Now let's address a common objection to the block universe. If time doesn't flow, why does it seem to? Why do we have such a powerful experience of time passing? Why does the future feel open and uncertain, while the past feels fixed and determined? Why do we remember the past, but not the future? These are excellent questions that get to the heart of the matter. The block universe theory doesn't deny that we experience time as flowing. Rather, it suggests that this experience is a psychological phenomenon, not a reflection of fundamental physics. Our brains are wired to perceive time in a way that was evolutionarily advantageous. We need to remember what happened in the past to avoid dangers and repeat successes, and we need to anticipate the future to plan our actions. But why does time feel like it flows in one direction? Why do we remember the past, but not the future? This is known as the arrow of time problem, and it's closely connected to the second law of thermodynamics, which states that entropy, a measure of disorder, tends to increase over time. The universe began in a state of very low entropy at the Big Bang, and has been increasing in entropy ever since. This increase in entropy creates the asymmetries we experience, causes precede effects. We remember the past but not the future, and so on. In the block universe, the arrow of time is explained by the distribution of entropy throughout the block. At one end, the Big Bang, entropy is very low. At the other end, whatever the final state of the universe turns out to be, entropy is very high. Our conscious experience is tied to this gradient. We're like surfers riding the wave of increasing entropy. This creates the powerful illusion that time is flowing, even though fundamentally, the entire block is static. Our brains, in this view, are like recording devices moving through the block, creating memories of the past, events that are earlier in the block relative to our current position, and anticipations of the future, events that are later in the block. But the past and future are equally real. We just don't have access to the future in the same way we have access to the past. This raises fascinating questions about consciousness itself. What is consciousness, and why is it tied to this particular direction in the block? Some philosophers and scientists suggest that consciousness arises from information processing in the brain, and that this processing is inherently time asymmetric due to the thermodynamic arrow. Others propose more radical ideas, such as that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, not just a product of brains. The relationship between consciousness and time remains one of the great mysteries. The block universe doesn't solve the hard problem of consciousness, but it does provide a framework for thinking about how consciousness might relate to time. Perhaps each moment of consciousness is a separate entity, existing eternally in the block, with the illusion of continuity created by memory and anticipation. Or perhaps consciousness somehow transcends the block, perceiving it from outside. This latter idea connects to some religious and spiritual traditions that posit an eternal perspective. As we mentioned earlier, Augustine and Aquinas believed that God exists outside of time and perceives all of eternity at once. In this view, the block universe might be how reality appears from a divine perspective, while from our limited human perspective, we experience time moment by moment. Whether or not one believes in a divine perspective, the block universe challenges us to expand our imagination. Can we, even momentarily, adopt a perspective that sees all of time as equally real? Can we glimpse what it would be like to perceive our lives not as fleeting moments, but as eternal patterns? This is not easy. Our brains seem wired for the flow perspective. But with practice, we might occasionally transcend our default mode of temporal perception. When we look at old photographs and feel connected to people and places from the past, when we contemplate history and feel its living presence, when we plan for the future with certainty that it will become real, in these moments, we may be touching the eternalist perspective. The block universe also has implications for how we think about death and mortality. If all moments exist eternally, then in a real sense, we never cease to exist. The moments of our lives are always there in the block. This doesn't mean we're conscious after death. The moments after our death exist, but we're not experiencing them because our consciousness ends at death. But every moment we did experience continues to exist eternally. This is both comforting and strange. Your childhood self, experiencing the wonder of discovery, still exists somewhere in space-time. Your older self, looking back with nostalgia, also exists. All the moments of your life are equally real and eternal. In this sense, nothing is ever lost. Every smile, every tear, every moment of love or courage or learning, it's all preserved forever in the cosmic block. This perspective can help us come to terms with the transience of our experiences. We often feel sad that happy moments don't last, that our children grow up too fast, that beautiful experiences fade into memory. But in the block universe, they don't fade. They remain forever real. The first time you held your child's hand, the moment you achieved a hard-won goal, the evening you spent with friends laughing until you cried, these are not gone. They're eternal features of the universe. At the same time, this eternity applies to painful moments as well. The moments of heartbreak, failure, and suffering are also eternally real. The block universe doesn't discriminate between joyful and painful experiences. It preserves them all. This can be difficult to accept, but it also gives our struggles meaning. They're not in vain. They're part of the permanent structure of reality. Now let's consider some of the more technical aspects of the block universe and how it relates to modern physics. We've already discussed its connection to special relativity, but what about general relativity, Einstein's theory of gravity? In general relativity, gravity is described as the curvature of space-time caused by mass and energy. The block universe fits naturally with this picture. The entire four-dimensional space-time is curved, with the curvature determining how objects move. From the perspective of general relativity, asking what is happening now across the entire universe doesn't make sense, because simultaneity is relative. There's no universal now that applies everywhere. This becomes particularly important when we consider the universe as a whole. Cosmology, the study of the origin and evolution of the universe, is based on general relativity. The standard model of cosmology describes the universe as expanding from an initial singularity, the Big Bang. In the block universe picture, the Big Bang isn't an event that happened long ago in the past. It's a region of the block, just as the present is a region of the block. When we look at distant galaxies, we're seeing them as they were in the past, because light takes time to reach us. In the block universe, we're not seeing into the past in the sense of looking at something that no longer exists. We're seeing light that comes from a different region of the block. That region exists just as surely as our current region exists. This has led some philosophers and physicists to suggest that the block universe provides the best framework for understanding cosmology. The entire history of the universe, from Big Bang to whatever end, exists as a single, coherent structure. Our scientific investigations are explorations of this structure, yet challenges remain. As we mentioned earlier, quantum mechanics seems to introduce indeterminacy and probability into the world. How can the future be fixed if quantum events are fundamentally random? Some physicists, like Lee Smolin, argue that this is a fatal flaw in the block universe idea. Others, like those who favor the many worlds interpretation, see no conflict. All possible outcomes occur in different branches of reality. The measurement problem in quantum mechanics, why we get definite outcomes from probabilistic laws, might also have implications for the block universe. Some have suggested that consciousness plays a special role in determining reality, though this view is controversial. Others propose that the block universe must be understood in light of quantum mechanics, leading to a quantum block, where reality is in some sense indeterminate until observed. These are deep waters, and the intersection of quantum mechanics, relativity, and the nature of time remains one of the most active areas of research in theoretical physics. As we develop new experiments and theories, our understanding of the block universe may evolve. Now, let's step back from the physics and consider the block universe from a more humanistic perspective. How does this idea influence our understanding of history, culture, and the human experience? If the block universe is correct, then all of human history exists eternally. The building of the pyramids, the life of Leonardo da Vinci, the composition of Beethoven's symphonies, the first steps on the moon, these aren't past events that are gone forever. They're eternal moments in the block, as real as the device you're using to experience this presentation. This can transform how we think about history. When we study historical events, we're not just studying shadows and echoes of things that no longer exist. We're learning about parts of reality that are just as real as our present, but located in a different region of space-time. The struggles and achievements of people in the past are not less real than our own. They're equally real. This perspective can foster a sense of connection across time. The artist creating a masterpiece today is engaged in the same fundamental human activity as the cave painter thousands of years ago. The scientist searching for truth today is continuing the same quest that began with the first human who wondered about the world. All these moments exist together in the block, forming a rich tapestry of human experience. Some thinkers have suggested that the block universe provides a kind of immortality, not in the sense of an afterlife, but in the sense that our lives are permanent features of reality. The poet's words, the musician's composition, the scientist's discovery, the parent's love, these are not temporary phenomena. They're etched into the fabric of space-time, forever part of the cosmic story. This doesn't necessarily comfort those who fear death or mourn lost loved ones. We want continued experience, not just the eternal existence of past experiences, but it does give meaning to our lives and the lives of those who came before us. Their existence wasn't in vain. It remains forever real. The block universe also challenges our notions of progress and destiny. If the future is already fixed, what does it mean to work toward a better world? Again, we can think in terms of the novel analogy. The characters in a novel can strive and struggle and grow, even though their story is complete. Similarly, in the block universe, our efforts to create a better future are real and meaningful. They're part of what makes the block what it is. Your decision to help someone, to create something beautiful, to learn something new, these choices are genuine, even though they're part of a fixed timeline. Without your choices, the timeline would be different. So your agency is real, even in the block universe. This brings us back to the question of free will, which we touched on earlier. The block universe is often seen as incompatible with libertarian free will, the idea that we can choose between genuinely open possibilities. But it may be compatible with other conceptions of free will, such as compatibilism, the view that free will is compatible with determinism. Compatibilists define free will as the ability to act according to one's desires and reasons, without external constraint. In the block universe, your actions are determined by prior causes, but they're still your actions, stemming from your character, values, and reasoning. So in this sense, you have free will, even though your choices are fixed in the block. This is a nuanced point that philosophers have debated for centuries. The block universe doesn't resolve the free will debate, but it does shape how we think about it. If the block universe is correct, then our choices are both determined and real. We are the authors of our actions, even though those actions are part of a fixed timeline. Now let's consider some of the cultural and artistic responses to the block universe idea. We've already mentioned how it appears in literature, such as in The Silent Guardian, but it has also influenced other art forms, from film to visual art to music. In film, works like Arrival play with the idea of experiencing time non-linearly. The protagonist learns to perceive her entire life, from birth to death, all at once, much like the block universe perspective. This transforms her understanding of choice, love, and loss. Similarly, Interstellar explores relativity and time dilation, showing how different characters experience time differently based on their motion and proximity to massive objects. These artistic explorations help us emotionally and intuitively grasp concepts that are intellectually challenging. They allow us to feel what it might be like to perceive time as a block rather than a flow. In literature, authors like Kurt Vonnegut in Slaughterhouse-Five present characters who become unstuck in time, experiencing events from different periods of their lives in non-chronological order. The Tralfamadorians, aliens in the novel, perceive all time simultaneously. They see the entire timeline of the universe all at once. When they look at a corpse, they remind themselves that the person is fine in other times, a distinctly block universe perspective. These cultural artifacts suggest that the block universe idea, while counterintuitive, resonates with something deep in the human psyche. We seem capable of imagining eternity, even if we can't directly experience it. Now, let's address a practical question. If the block universe is true, does it make any difference to our daily lives? Should we live differently based on this understanding? On one level, no. The block universe doesn't change the fact that we experience time as flowing. We still need to plan for the future, learn from the past, and live in the present. We still feel the urgency of deadlines, the nostalgia of memories, the anticipation of future events. On another level, understanding the block universe might transform our relationship with time. It might help us be more present in each moment, knowing that this moment is eternally real. It might help us worry less about the future, knowing that it's already out there, fixed and real. It might help us cherish our past experiences, knowing that they're not lost, but preserved forever. Some people find that the block universe perspective reduces their anxiety about death. While death still ends consciousness, all the moments of their life remain real. Their existence is permanent, even if their experience is finite. Others find that the block universe adds weight to their decisions. Their choices are not fleeting, they're eternal features of the cosmos. This can inspire them to live more intentionally, making choices that they're willing to have etched permanently into reality. Of course, different people respond differently to these ideas. Some find them comforting, others disturbing. There's no right or wrong emotional response to the block universe. It's a radical reconception of reality, and it naturally evokes strong reactions. As we near the end of our exploration, let's consider where the block universe idea might go in the future. Will it be superseded by new physics? Will it be confirmed? How might our understanding evolve? The development of a theory of quantum gravity will likely have profound implications for our understanding of time. Some approaches to quantum gravity, like loop quantum gravity, suggest that space-time is discrete rather than continuous. At the Planck scale, the smallest possible scale, time might be granular, not smooth. This could challenge the continuous block universe picture, or it might be incorporated into a more refined version. Other approaches, like string theory, have their own implications for time. Some versions of string theory suggest there are additional dimensions beyond the four we experience. Time might have a more complex structure in these higher dimensional spaces. Experiments that probe the nature of time are also being developed. Precise measurements of time dilation, observations of the cosmic microwave background, studies of black holes, all these might provide clues about the fundamental nature of time. Philosophical work continues as well, with thinkers exploring new variations on the block universe idea, or developing alternatives that better account for our experience of time's flow. The debate between the block universe and its alternatives is likely to continue for some time. As one writer notes, "I think the block universe is an interesting metaphysical concept, one that could be true, but I've never seen it, in and of itself, as a particularly comforting one. But maybe I'm missing something?" This honest reflection captures the ongoing conversation around the block universe. It's a compelling idea, but it raises as many questions as it answers. In conclusion, the block universe theory presents us with a radical and profound vision of reality. It suggests that time, as we experience it flowing, is an illusion, and that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously in a four-dimensional block. This idea emerges from Einstein's theory of relativity, which tells us that simultaneity is relative and there's no universal now. While the block universe challenges our deepest intuitions, it also offers a majestic vision of cosmic eternity. Every moment of your life, every joy and sorrow, every triumph and failure, every connection and separation is eternally real, permanently part of the fabric of space-time. Nothing is ever lost. Everything is preserved forever in the block. This perspective doesn't necessarily make life meaningless. Rather, it gives our experiences a kind of permanent significance. Your life is not a fleeting shadow, but an eternal carving in the cosmos. Your choices matter, because they determine what is eternally true about your corner of reality. The block universe may not be the final word on the nature of time. Science continues to advance, and new discoveries may lead us to revise or replace this model. But for now, it stands as one of the most compelling interpretations of our best physical theories, inviting us to expand our minds and see reality from a broader perspective. So the next time you look at old photographs, or plan for the future, or simply pause to appreciate the present moment, remember, you're not just experiencing a fleeting instant that will soon vanish. You're touching eternity. You're encountering one face of a reality that encompasses all times and all places, a cosmic block where everything that ever was or will be exists together, forever. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the block universe. May your explorations of time and reality continue to inspire wonder, curiosity, and a deeper appreciation for the mysterious cosmos we inhabit. Good night. Have a deep, calm sleep.